So let's start out. I'm just going to tell you who I am. My name is Brian Wood, and I do a lot of different stuff for Adobe. I actually write the Illustrator Classroom in a book. I write the Muse Classroom in a book. How many of you have ever heard of Adobe Muse or used it before? Poor little Muse. So sad. That's all right. And then I write the XD Classroom in a book. Also, how many of you guys know that Adobe is creating video content for like learning stuff? You can go out and go to Adobe Learn. Okay, so I'm in charge of the Illustrator stuff, I'm in charge of the InDesign stuff and the XD stuff, and I create a lot of it, like the getting started content and things like that. So I kind of get my hands on a lot of different things, but my main tool is Illustrator. How many of you love Illustrator? Like really love Illustrator, really? Okay. Illustrator is just awesome. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. There's a lot of things we can do, but what I want to do today is show you some techniques, some tips, things like that along the way. And like I said, we're going to do a lot of smaller projects. So, you know, if you get lost or something like that, we're going to switch gears in about 10 minutes anyway. So we're going to start out, once you all launch Illustrator, it should be obviously down there in the dock. And we'll make sure that everybody's got it. It takes a few seconds for it to launch. Once it does, we should show it. And I wanted to mention that if you go out and you take a look in Illustrator, let me switch over screens here. It's going to look like this, which when you go back to work or whatever, it's not going to look like this. You guys are going to see, how many of you have seen that, the start screen with like your recent files and stuff like that? Okay, you are going to see that when you get back to work or wherever you go. Right now we're just seeing this. We wanted to optimize it just so we can kind of jump in. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of start out by talking about just a few things that we can set now that'll make it a little bit easier for us to work in here. How many of you have ever been into the Illustrator preferences before? Okay. So why don't you do this? Come on up to Illustrator CC in the upper left corner. Hopefully you got it open. Come to Preferences, and I want you to come to User Interface. So open up User Interface. How many of you have ever, like you've seen somebody working in Illustrator and you see the Illustrator lean, where they're working like this against the screen to see things? How many of you guys have ever tried to select anchor points with those direction handles? And they're like 50 in a row or 50 on top of each other, and you can't select them because they're so small. Well, what we can do in Illustrator is we can actually take and adjust the UI. We actually have a new feature in here, if you look, under User Interface, and it's called UI Scaling. So you can make it so that the entire UI is actually larger, which is really pretty awesome. You can see your cursors a little bit easier, your pointers, all that kind of stuff. It's going to take effect after you quit and restart Illustrator. That's kind of the idea here. But this is, you guys, this is pretty killer. I actually did this on my machine at home. And the other thing you can do too, come to Selection and Anchor Display on the left upper corner there, and you'll see that we have a slider where we can change the size of the anchor points and the handles and the bounding boxes. It's all that little crap you try to select and it's just too small or other, okay? So you can do that for yourselves. You don't have to restart for that one, I believe. So just change it the way you want. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can all see kind of what I'm doing. And there's a lot of other stuff. Does anybody have a favorite preference they set in here? That's a pretty geeky thing to say. Go ahead. Units, right? Units, there's a lot of things we can set. What we're going to do is as we go through, I'm going to talk to you guys about tips and tricks and things like that that are going to affect some of these. But for now, go ahead and click OK. All right? All right. Are you guys ready? Really? Ready? Come on. All right. We're going to open up a file. We're going to get started, okay? So let's go to File, Open. First thing we're going to take a look at is something called Puppet Warp. So when you go to the Open dialog box, you should see on your desktop an Assets folder. Open up the Assets folder. And in there, you should see, I'm at the very top of the list, L238 Wood. Open that bad boy up. And we should see 01 Puppet. Open that file if you can. How many of you use Typekit Fonts at all? Anybody use Typekit? Okay. So we actually have in this file, I've got a Typekit font that may or may not ask you to activate the font. Does anybody see the dialog, the missing font dialog box? Okay. If you guys see it, go ahead and click Activate Fonts. You'll notice that the terminology, the language around that has changed a little. It used to be Sync. It's now Activate. They used to be called Typekit Fonts. Adobe's kind of folding them in, and they are called Adobe fonts now. Okay, so when you hear them referenced, I'll call them Adobe fonts. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the woman over here on the bicycle, and we're going to make it so that she can, I don't know, just do some different things. We're going to make it so she can look up. We're going to have her scarf kind of do some things, etc. So go ahead and zoom in on the left artboard over here. And what are some of your favorite ways to zoom in quickly? Command 0, right? Option scroll or Alt scroll. If you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can hold down Option key and scroll. You can do that. A lot of times you can also click. One of my favorites is you can click on an object. Command plus, Command minus, Control plus, Control minus on Windows, and it zooms into the selected object, okay? All right, so what I want to do is I want to select her head. So we're going to grab the whole thing, okay? That sounds wrong, but let's do it. So select the selection tool, and do you guys notice that there's no tool selected? That freaked me out when I first saw that. Anyway, look at the toolbar over on the left. What's different? There's something new. What's different? You get an A for the day if you figure it out. Yell it out. There's like a quarter of the tools in there. How many of you guys have ever looked at the tools bar and you're like, what the hell does that tool do? You like hover over it, it shows you tooltip, or like, I still don't know. You're going to see that right now we actually have a stripped down version of the tools panel, okay? If we want to, these are all the essential tools that we're going to use. If we want to show other tools or show the same toolbar we used to see, we can switch workspaces, or if you come into the tools panel, kind of almost about halfway down, you're going to see this little ellipsis. You can click Edit Toolbar, and that's going to give you a little marketing, and you can just click again, and it's going to show you all the tools that we've got available. The idea here is that you can customize this to have the tools you want. So you can, if you want a tool that's out there, it's going to be highlighted, like you're going to be able to drag it. You can drag it right onto the tools panel to be able to use it. You can also, if you guys see tools in a tools panel and you're like, I will never use that in my life, you can drag it out to put it into the list and take it out of the tools panel. So what I want to do is, we're going to use a couple tools here, so I'm going to drag them out. So why don't you scroll in here, and you should see somewhere in here, if I scroll down, we should see Puppet Warp. Where is it? There it is, kind of close to the bottom. If you come and find Puppet Warp, and what you want to do is just drag it over to the tools panel. Now, drag it in between two tools, and you'll see a line, like a blue line show up, and just let go. That's going to put it in the outside toolbar so you can see it. Does everybody else see, if you scroll in here, can you find the live paint bucket tool? What the heck is it? I'm going blind. What's going on? There it is, live. Yeah, it's in a paint section, and it's called the live paint bucket. Everybody see that one? Drag that one in too. Just drop it right on the toolbar. Don't put it in another tool. Just kind of drop it between tools. All right. Now a little tip here. If you are doing this, you're setting up your tools panel, you're like, oh, cool, I love it, but you want to maybe go back to where it was, or you put too many, etc. You can always reset this thing really easily. So in this menu, if you come to the upper right corner of the menu right up here, you're going to see you can reset it to the basic, or you can switch to the advanced, which is what we used to have. Okay, so you've got actually a lot of options here. All right, why don't you press Escape so you can hide that. And what I want to do is we're going to select her head. So go to the selection tool and just drag across. Now all these shapes there's a couple groups here. So drag across her head and the headphone wires there. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that we transform it. Now what I want to do is I want to rotate it around her neck, okay? We can do that really easily with the rotate tool, right? But I also want to make it so that these wires are going to kind of stay in place. So what we'll do is we'll use the Puppet Warp. So why don't you go ahead and select the Puppet Warp tool you just dragged into the tools panel. And if you look, you're going to see it's going to go out and figure out, this is kind of a newer feature with Puppet Warp, it's going to figure out where it should put in these pins, okay, or where it should be able to rotate, be able to move, and be able to stay still, in other words. How many of you have used Puppet Warp before? Okay. It's actually in After Effects. It's in a bunch of programs that we have. But here's the idea. We can take, now don't, hang on, just watch me for a second, okay? We can take these little pins out here, and mine are a little bit bigger because I just changed that UI. But if I go out, I can actually start to warp artwork, which is kind of cool. But notice this is a little freaky. Look at her head, right? That's a little crazy. What I really want to do is, let me undo. I'm going to edit undo. I want to make it so that she doesn't have her head look like a melon, okay, so it doesn't stretch. So do you guys all see 3 pins out here? Okay. If you take this pin on her hair, why don't you follow with me? Go ahead and click on that pin to select it. Anytime you want to move a pin, you just click on it, then you drag it. Now, as you drag it, just start dragging it. As you drag it, press the Option key on Mac, which we're all on, and you're going to see what happens. Okay? Now, this key is going to save you a lot of time, because what it's going to try and do is it's going to try and kind of minimize the sphere of influence, or whatever this is called. Okay? If I let go of the key and I start dragging, notice what happens. Everything starts to move. When we work with the Puppet Warp, we want to make sure that we set enough pins, and when you set a pin somewhere, it's going to either keep it still so it doesn't move, or it's going to allow you to move it or rotate it or both. Okay? Now, what I want to do, don't go crazy, you guys. I know some of you are getting a little nutty here. What I want to do is I want to actually just rotate the entire head. Okay? Right now, I want one pin in here. Where do you think I'm going to put that pin to rotate her head? On the neck. So what I'd like you to do is, if you see any pins like on the hair, click on it. And we can't move a pin right now. In other words, you can't move it on the artwork because the artwork moves with it. So what you can do is you just hit delete and get rid of it. I want to delete all the pins except for the one on her neck. Okay? Now, just watch up here for 1 second. If I go out and I start, you're going to notice there's a dashed line around that circle, that pin. If I come up to it and I start dragging, notice what happens. It looks like she's decapitated. That's creepy. I would probably move that pin down a little further, or at least delete it and try again. But anyway, whatever. Okay, so what I want to do is just have her look up. But notice what's wrong. What's wrong with this? What's going on? The headphone jack, the wires, right? So what do you think I might do? Add a pin to the end of the wires. So why don't you come down to the end of the wires down here where those triangles are showing up and just click to add a pin. That's going to keep them in place. So it's going to keep them still. Now come to the one on the neck and click on it, and you're going to see the circle around it. Move over the circle and start to rotate. And you can see what we can do. Okay? You guys, Puppet Warp is really cool. There's a lot of great things we can do with this. Even if you're doing like simple rotations and you need to keep part of it still, things like that. Okay? There's a lot of great things we can do here. That key, the Option key, or Alt on Windows, is going to save you a ton of time. As a matter of fact, let's do this. What shortcut, does anyone know how to fit all the artboards in the window? What fast shortcut to use to do that? We have Command 0, right, which is fit artboard and window. If you guys use Command Option 0, it's going to fit all the artboards in the window. What I want to do is, why don't you go ahead and select, there's text down here called Squeeze. Not the text that's actually squeezed, but the text below the artboard there. Go ahead and click on it. What I love about the Puppet Warp is that we can warp just about anything. We can warp tons of stuff, even text. If you come to this text and click on it with the selection tool, and then go to the Puppet Warp tool, go ahead and select Puppet Warp and take a look. It's going to look at it and say, well, here's where we should put the pins. I mean, it's a bit of an epic fail. That's okay. But we can always add our own. So I'm going to go take that E on Squeeze at the very end, and I want to maybe make it look like it's doing this. So the E, the two serif, or the ends are doing that. So why don't you come to the end of the E here and click on both of these. Add a pin on each side, or each little part. And if you drag one of them out, notice what's going to happen to the rest of the letters, right? We're going to get this happening. This is where holding the Option key is going to really help you out. So hold down the Option key and drag that pin out. You're going to notice it's really not going to affect a lot of the other areas. So drag it down a little further. Let go of the mouse first, then the Option key. And you can actually rotate it. So grab the rotation and do a little rotate or do something like that. You can see. It takes a little getting used to. It really does. But once you do, you can really start to kind of work with this and do some really cool things. Another tip for you, if you are working on this word and you really only want like the E at the end there, you want that one to be able to, distort and do stuff to it. One tip I have for people all the time is select it and just move it away a teeny bit from the other letters. That mesh, you guys see the triangle mesh? If it's not touching another area, it can actually make it so you just adjust that one letter, okay? And then maybe later you can move it next to it again. But there's a lot of ways to work with this so it doesn't affect other artwork and do things like that, okay? All right, what do you think of the Puppet Warp? There's some pretty cool things. There's some amazing things you can do, okay? All right, let's do this. We're going to switch over, and we're going to start to work, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about reflecting and transformations and just fast ways to do that. So we're going to open up another file. So why don't you come to File and come to Open. Hopefully you're all still in the same folder, and you should see the 00transform.ai. Open that one up. All right, we got a rocket ship. Everybody got that open? Okay. How many of you have ever used like reflect and rotate? That's a stupid question. You all rotate. Okay. I want to show you a few tips for transformations, some shortcuts and fast ways to work in these, because if we're going to do something like symmetrical artwork or geometric stuff or whatever you're doing, and we want to make it to where we don't have to work as hard, that's what I'm going to show you. So what I want to do is I want to take, if you come to the rocket over here and go ahead and zoom into the rocket, and I want to come to that triangle up top here, okay? So the nose cone. And what I'd like to do is we're going to make that, we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to put it on the rocket, and then take the whole rocket, the half of it rather, and flip it across and copy it, okay? Just do an easy reflect. What's the easiest way, do you think, that I can take that triangle and just cut it directly in half? Perfect cut. What would you do? Yep, you got it. Shape Builder, merging shapes, pathfinders. Anywhere else? Anyone else? Knife tool. How many of you guys use the knife? How many of you guys know how to cut a straight line with the knife? That's a little more challenging. Option Shift. It's really wacky. Shift key doesn't do it. I don't know. Whatever. Thing about a lot of these tools, you guys, like knife. How many of you use the scissors tool? That's cool, right? Scissors are great. If you're zoomed out really far and you use the knife, it's not going to be as effective, because you're looking at it and going, oh, it's perfectly lined up. It's going to be that far off, okay? So a lot of times with those tools, you want to zoom in as close as you can get. What we're going to do is we're going to use another method. This is called Divide Objects Below. How many of you have ever used that before? It's one of these esoteric little things that's in here, but we need to create a line. So we're going to create a line perfectly vertical, and we're going to say, we're going to use that line to basically just cut everything below it, okay? So go over to your tools panel on the left, come to the rectangle tool. You're going to see that the line segment's under there now. They've kind of moved things around a little bit. And what I want you to do is just go out and draw a straight line. What do I need to press to make a straight line? Shift key. You got it. Now, when you drew the line, what kind of stroke and fill do you guys have? Is there no stroke, no fill? Okay, that's kind of messed up, isn't it? All right, so what I want to do is I want to put a black stroke on it. Hang on, I see you guys doing it. I know. Hang on. The fastest way, in my opinion, to apply a black stroke to an object is to press the letter D. So press D. What did I just do with the letter D? What's that stand for? Default. You got it. So what we just did, now we did something that I didn't want to do. We actually applied a white fill as well to the line. But who cares? Because it's not going to show up, right? Here's another shortcut for you if you don't know this one. If you want to, if you look at your tools panel, or just about any Adobe application, we got to make sure we've got the fill or the stroke up front, right? We always got to kind of keep an eye on that, whatever we're fixing. So if you want to switch those two, press the letter X. Just keep pressing it, and then look at the stroke and fill. It's like one's up front, one's behind, at the bottom of the tools panel, right? What I want you to do is make sure the white box, the fill, is up front. If you want to remove a fill from an object or a stroke from an object, make sure it's showing over there, it's up front, and all you need to do is hit the / or the question mark. These are keyboard commands I use all the time because it just saves you a bunch of time. So I'm just going to strip the fill off that thing, okay? Did that work? All right. Okay, let's take that line, and I want you to just drag it on top, or you know what, you guys, what's the easiest way to center this on the triangle? Probably use like an alignment, right? What if I want to, here's a question for you. What if I want to take the line, the triangle's already in place. Let's just pretend. I want to take the line and move it to the triangle and align it to the triangle. How do I do that? Key object. Let's do it that way. We'll try that. So what I want you to do is select both objects. You can just drag across. To make it so that the line aligns to the triangle, click back on the triangle. Don't hold anything down, just click on it. And you just set that as the key object. That means that anything else is going to align to it. Come over to your alignments in the Properties panel and do the center align. Okay? All right. I want to take that line now and I want to make it so it just cuts the triangle in half. Now you can do this for any artwork. We could have a hole, the rocket ship underneath, whatever. So deselect it and then click back on the line and come up to Object, Path, Divide Objects Below. And once you do that, it's just going to do what it says. Just going to divide it in half, basically, right where it was. Take that right-hand side of the triangle and just get rid of it. Nuke it. Does that work, you guys? You're not going to use it all the time, okay? But I do use it. There are times where I have to use that. Okay, now what I want to do is take that rest of the triangle and I want to snap it to the top of the rocket. So I want to take it from one anchor point to another and just snap them like this. I could just drag the thing and hope it aligns, right? But we're going to do this. How many of you mess with the bounding boxes of objects? Like you turn it on, you turn it off. How many of you do it by accident, where the box just disappears and you're like, what happened? Yeah, all the time, I know. All right, so click on the triangle. To turn off or on, toggle it, the bounding box, you can come under View and you'll see Hide Bounding Box. Now, I learned this shortcut a while back just because what you're going to see is an easy way to drag and align stuff. So go ahead and hide the bounding box. You're going to notice that you now just have the points around it. If you click, now my thought is if I click on a point, I might distort it or do something. But at this point, if I come to this point right here and I just drag from that point down here, I can snap it from anchor to anchor. And the white arrow is going to tell me that I've just snapped it. It's a great way to align stuff together. Just kind of keep it easy. That way, sometimes you don't have to use Align Panel or any of that stuff, okay, or distribution or whatever. All right, now make sure you turn the bounding box back on, because we'll all freak out a little if we don't. So come under View, Show Bounding Box. All right, go ahead and select the whole rocket. What I want to do is I want to take all this work and I just want to copy it, reflect it, and have it be the rocket, okay? So we're going to do this in one step. Why don't you come over to the left? We're going to use the Reflect tool, rather, to do this. So come over to the Rotate tool in the Tools bar, press and hold, and you should see the Reflect tool. They kind of, or like I said, organize things a little differently in here, but that's okay. How many of you guys use these tools to do like reflecting, rotating, all that? Okay. Sometimes. It depends on what you're doing, right? I'm going to go to Reflect, and the great thing about these tools that I love is that you can set where it reflects or rotates around, right? It's that little, you all see the aqua thing? What is the term, what's the correct term for that? The thing to reflect around? Whatever. Axis, there you go. So it's that aqua thing. Now what I want to do is I want to make it so that it actually reflects around the right side of the rocket and does a copy and all that. So here's what we do. For any of these transformation tools, you can come up to, you guys come up to the top of the rocket, and you're going to see if you hover over that anchor point, it should say anchor. For any of these tools, if you want to do all these things in one step, press the Option key, Alt on Windows, and you're going to see a little minus sign next to the pointer. If you click with that key held down on the anchor point, you're saying this. You're telling Illustrator, reflect, rotate, transform, whatever, around where I just clicked, and give me the options in the dialog box. I now have the dialog, and if you come in here, make sure vertical is selected, select preview, and what are we going to do next? Click copy. There we go. Okay. So with these transformation tools, I love them. The dialogues, all that kind of stuff to be able to transform objects are great, but these actually let us do a lot of different things with where we do this, okay, how we do it. So did that work for everybody? Okay. All righty. Let's do this. We're going to switch over again, and what I want to do is I want to start talking to you guys about blending, and then we're going to get into Live Paint. So we're going to open up another file. So let's go to File, Open. And you should see a file in there. Really? What's it called? Blend text. Okay, do you see the extras folder? Open that up, and you should see O2 blend text in there. Go ahead and open that one up. There we got the smooth text open. How many of you have worked with blends before? Okay, a few of us. The idea behind a blend is this. This is kind of an example I came up with. Suppose you're creating like an illustration of a house, okay? And what you want to do is you want to make a fence in front. So instead of me drawing one of those little pickets and then copying it 1,000 times across, in Illustrator we can make one here, copy one over here, and say, Illustrator, blend it for me. It's going to make all the copies between. If you really think about that, that is freaking crazy, because I could do like, I could make a shirt, I could have a button, and say, just give me the rest. There's a billion stitches on a shirt. I mean, there's a million ways you can do this. And yeah, we could use brushes and all that, but blends are there's a lot of great things we can do. We can also make what's called a smooth color blend. So you can have one object, one path, and say, I want to take the color from this one and the color from this one and just blend it like a gradient, make it look like that. And what's cool about that is that you can actually make a shape out of it. You can have it blend across like a shape. This is what we used to do, kind of an old school thing. Just watch me for 1 second, you guys. I used to do this old school way of like coming in and saying, I want to go in and change color, and watch this. Let me change color on this, and I'll copy it over here, and get rid of that. I'll do this, there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called the blend tool to say, I want you to blend from here to here, and look what I get, okay? So for us to make a blend along a path kind of thing, we used to kind of fake it, and we did it this way. There's another way to do it, and I'll show you guys. It's called Freeform Gradient today. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to draw a couple of shapes. We're going to draw 2 circles, and we're going to say just make that blend between, okay? So what I want you to do is right below the blend that's up there, draw a circle for me. So you can go over to your line segment tool and select the ellipse tool. And then go ahead and fill it with some color if you want, something different. And remove the stroke. Don't forget, a fast way to remove something like a fill or a stroke, hit the X key until you see the stroke up front, and then hit the / or the question mark to remove it. Go ahead and make a copy of the circle off to the right then. What's the fast way to do that? Option drag or Alt drag, you got it. Okay. All right, now to blend these two together, we're going to use the blend tool, okay? The whole idea behind the blend tool is that you're going to click on one thing and then click on another, and it's just going to do it for you. So come over to the blend tool in your tools panel. Go ahead and select that. Now, go right over the middle of the first circle. I usually go, I don't know why, but I go left to right rather. So click within the middle of the first circle, just click. Come to the circle on the right, and if you go in the middle of it, you're going to see a little plus show up. That means you're adding it to the blend. Click. Sorry, it's got 3 shapes on it, like a square to a circle, toward the bottom of the tools panel. You don't see it in there? So it's above the Artboard tool. It should be in the default. Do you guys all see the blend tool? Did you find it? Okay. Do you guys have, does it look like mine, yours? That's okay. 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 Does it look like just color, gradient? Okay, that's the way it should do it. I don't know default's got set, something different. So don't worry, I'll show you how to adjust it. Now with this selected, this is actually called a blend object. What's going on here is it's actually simply got 2 circles and a line between them. It's kind of crazy. How many of you work in outline mode? Outline mode is something we do a lot, we use a lot, because it's going to give us just the outlines of the objects, and it's going to make it easier to select stuff. And you can also see how things are built. So why don't you come up under View, and you're going to see Outline. So Command-Y is a great shortcut to learn. If you go to outline mode, you're going to see exactly what it's made of. You really don't have all that color and that stuff in between is really not there, okay? It is. You're going to print it, you're going to do whatever, but for us, we have 3 things, a line and 2 circles. So what we can do is we can actually edit any of this stuff. You can do all kinds of crazy things. Come back out of outline mode, come up under View, and choose GPU Preview, or Preview. And if we want to change the settings for the blend, like try something a little different, with it selected, with that object selected, come to the blend tool and just double click on the blend tool. If you notice, you're going to see it's going to say, okay, let's change up some things here. We actually have smooth color, specified steps, and we also have specified distance. So if you guys want to have like the fence I'm talking about, like the fence for the house, I've got 2 pickets and I want 3 more in between, I can say specified steps, I can have 3 as specified steps. If you guys want to have it to where there's like a ½ inch between each one of those, you can set a specified distance, it's called. So we've got a lot of ways to work with these, okay? So what I want to do is just, you guys make sure that smooth color is selected. And if we have a path that's curved or something like that, which we can do, we can actually set what's called orientation. You can change how it affects on the path itself. Just click OK. I just wanted to show you those. Make sure smooth color is selected. And I think for mine, what's happening here is that I actually have two circles with the same color in it. There we go. All right. OK. Does everybody kind of look like mine, but you have different color maybe? OK. What we're going to do now is we're going to be able to adjust that and put it on text. So I want you guys to draw. We're going to put a little text out here. Like we're going to draw or create the word smooth. So come to the type tool. And what I want you to do is just type the word smooth. Now, is everybody familiar with the difference between point type and area type, like how to create the text in Illustrator? We can do what? We can click and start typing, or we can draw a box and start typing, right? How many of you have ever taken the text box and reshaped it, and your text started stretching and squishing and all that stuff? Okay? So with Illustrator, let's do this first. Let's make it bigger so we can see it and change some formatting options for it. Go ahead and select your text. I'll just double click, whatever. Come over to the right, and you should see we've got our font, we've got our size, and all that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and change the font size. Make it pretty big. Okay. And let's pick a different font. So come into the font menu. I think I asked this before. How many of you use Typekit Fonts? Okay. If you use Typekit Fonts, one of the things that we used to have to do in Illustrator is, let me back up. Typekit Fonts are part of your membership. Okay? So it's a collection of fonts we can use. If we wanted to use them in Illustrator, we would go out to the web, find them, sync them, they would bring them down, we'd be able to use them, etc. Well, brand new in Illustrator, we can actually go out and just pick them right from here and sync them right from the application. So you don't have to go out to the website now, which is a huge time saver. So if you look in this menu that just showed up, you're going to see fonts, which are on your system, and you're going to see Find More. Click Find More, and you're going to see all the Typekit fonts from the website. It's pretty awesome. So we can now go in and just start sorting and looking, kind of figuring out what we want to do. You guys, we want to pick a font that's kind of thin. Okay? Does everybody see? Let's see a font here. Acme. Do you guys all see Acumen Pro? If you scroll down a little. Okay, the way this works is if you want to pick a font style, there's an arrow to the left of the font name. Click on the arrow. You're going to see the font styles like thin and bold and all that stuff. And what I want to do is I want to use, if you can find it, Acumen Pro Thin. To be able to use it, what you're going to do is you're actually going to activate it. So if you look, there's a little cloud icon all the way to the right from the name there. Does everybody see Activate on Acumen Pro Thin? Does anybody see Deactivate? Okay. All right. So go ahead and click on the little cloud, and it's going to say, are you sure? There's a little dialog that pops up. Are you sure you want to do that? And what's going to happen is you just click OK, and it's going to be able to apply it. Now, it's going to download to your machine. Now, what happens here is if we want to be able to see this and use it, we have to sort our font list to make it easier for us. So you're going to see there's actually a little cloud icon with a check mark right up here, which says Show Our Activated Fonts. So click on that to sort the list so you can see everything. Does everybody see the font in that list? Acumen Pro Thin, or whatever you found? Go ahead and click to apply it. As long as you guys have kind of a thin font, that's all we need. Okay? All right. What I want to do is I want to take and I want to make this text into shapes. How do we do that? Create outlines, right? The thing about create outlines, though, we're going to take our blend And I want to make it so that we actually take the letters, each of the letters, and make it basically a path. And we're going to take the blend, and we're going to fit it to like the letter S. And it's going to automatically just go along the letter S for us. We can do this with a blend easily. The thing is, we need to have paths. And if we use create outlines, we're going to get shapes. It's like a little rectangles, right? Kind of stretched. So what we need to do is this. We're going to get a little tricky here. I actually do this more than I would expect. I want to trace the text. How many of you have ever used trace in Illustrator? Really? Okay. Successfully? The three of you? No? Okay. How many of you guys have ever used, come on now. I use it every day. Adobe Capture. How many of you guys have ever used Adobe Capture? It's a free app you can use on your iOS or Android device if you guys get it. It's an Adobe app. And what you can do is you can actually take a picture of something or use a picture you have, and it will convert it to vector for you. It's actually pretty awesome. Then you can send it right to Illustrator and keep doing stuff on it. So check it out. It's a great way to get vector stuff. Okay, so we want to trace the text, but here's the problem. It's already vector. So what we need to do is we're going to rasterize it. This is so weird, okay? So in order to rasterize the text, come on up to Object, and you will see Rasterize. Choose Rasterize. And with this, all we need to do in this case is we're going to say 150 ppi is totally fine. That's all we need. And I don't want to see white, so we're going to make it transparent. So go ahead and select Transparent, and select the resolution at about 150. That's all we need. And go ahead and click OK. How's your text look? Pretty crappy, right? If you zoom into it. Looks pretty nasty. Okay, we're almost there. Last step, we're going to trace it. That way we're going to get a path out of every letter, okay? So if you look on the right, we should see our Image Trace button. Go ahead and click on Image Trace on the right. And what do you think we might try and use here to get this to be just like paths? Which setting? I think, yeah, let's do line art. Go ahead and choose line art. It'll take a second. Spinning beach ball of death. There we go. Not too bad. Looks okay. The thing is, you guys, we're going to use this to put a blend on it, so it doesn't have to be perfect. That's totally okay. Did everybody get it? Now, what I want to do is after we trace something, I want to be able to get into the shapes and start moving them and doing stuff. The thing is, when we trace anything, it's still what's called an image trace object. You can't touch it. You can't do anything to it. So what we need to do is we need to actually expand it or commit to it. So if you look in the Properties panel on the right, you should see a button called Expand. Go ahead and click on Expand, and it is now a series of paths that we can use. All right. Tell you what, it's actually a group of shapes now, so I want to ungroup them. So go ahead and click on them if they're not selected yet, and go ahead and ungroup them however you know how. You should see the Ungroup button on the right. You can do that too. And do this with me. We're going to do the S first, okay, because it's the easiest one. Here's how we do this. You are going to select the path you want to use for the blend, and then you're going to select the blend as well. You're going to select both of them, and you're going to say, we are going to replace what's called the spine of the blend. In other words, that line in the blend, we're going to replace it with the path we just made. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. Take your blend object up here and make a copy of it real quick. Just copy, paste, or option drag. That way we've got another one we can work with. Select the blend, make sure one of them is selected, and then select the letter S as well. Shift-click on the letter S. Now to make the magic happen, we're going to replace the spine, it's called. So come up under Object, come to Blend, and you'll see Replace Spine. Go ahead and choose that. And you got yourself an S. This is kind of a silly example, but we can do this with anything when we do a blend, you guys. You really can. As long as you have a path that you want to use for the blend to go along, you can do it. So there's some really awesome things we can do here, okay? Did that work for everybody? I'm hoping? Okay. All right, now you can do the rest of the letters, and I'm just going to give you a heads up. What we can do if we want is if we're going to do like the T and the H, those might be separate paths. So you want to do them one at a time, like the top of the T and the bottom of the T. You do them all separately, okay? And every time you go to do this, you want to make sure you make a copy of your blend object, that blend thing we made, because otherwise you're not going to have one. It's going to be part of the S, or the letter, okay? Yeah? Yeah, no, that's a great question. So she's asking, how do I adjust, like her S is kind of squished or something. How do I adjust it? Well, the cool thing about it is it's still just two circles in a line. So if we want to, how many of you guys double click on a group or something like that and you go into isolation mode? You all seen that, right? So if you come up to one of your blend objects, like on the letter S, and if you double click on part of it, it's actually going to take you into isolation mode. You can now, if you click on each object, you can separate these out if you want to. So I can have the circle, I can have the path, and I can change the path, and look what it's going to do. All the circles are going to follow. I can even go with like my direct selection tool and do stuff like start messing with it totally. Just do whatever I want. Pretty soon it'll look like extruded Play-Doh or something. It's kind of weird. Okay. Yeah, you can make the circles bigger, you can change the size, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But double clicking allows you to get into the blend and start working on individual pieces. Now if you want, you're done, you've kind of blended, do your thing. You can also then, to get out of this whole mode here, you can either press escape, if I double clicked on one, or you can double click outside of the object. And that's going to exit isolation mode. All right. So here's a tip for you guys. How many of you work with groups in Illustrator? Okay, a lot of us do, right? How do you go in and select an individual object within a group? Double click. There's a billion ways, right? One of the fastest ways I know, if I need to go in and change the color of something and it's in a group, use the direct selection tool. All you need to do is select the object. So if you use direct selection, the white arrow, click on an object within a group, you've got it selected. You can then change appearance properties. You don't have to double click, you don't have to do anything, okay? All right, that looks ridiculous. Let's move on. Let me zoom out here. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at what's called live paint. This is a pretty awesome feature, and it's going to make your workflow a little bit faster, I think, if you use it the way I use it. So we're going to open up another project file. I know, we keep going here. So let's go to File, Open, and you should see, what did I say we're doing, live paint? We are going to open up 04 paintbucket.ai. So go ahead and open that file up, if you don't mind. All right, I'm going to fit that in so you can see everything. Should look like this. Hopefully you got it all open. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an isometric, fake isometric shape, okay? We're going to totally fake this, all right? But a lot of things we do in Illustrator, that's how we do it. So if you look out there, you're going to see I've got this one up top, I've got the middle one, and I've got the bottom kind of like triangle thing. These were all created using live paint. Now, instead of me having to go out and create every one of those shapes, like everything you see that has a different color, I actually just used a bunch of paths. I drew a bunch of lines, and I used what's called the live paint bucket tool to be able to go in and paint. Using live paint is almost like working in a coloring book, where you're just going and you're saying, okay, I got a circle. I can just take like my crayons and say, this area is red, this area is blue, without having to create the shapes that go there. Illustrator will do all that for you. So just to show you, watch, real quick, watch up here for a second. I'm just going to give you a quick example of what it is. So I'm going to create a circle and I'm going to create a line like that. And what I want to do is I want to color half of the circle with this color and the other half with another color. So if I select those two objects and I go with the live paint bucket, which should be over here somewhere, I can actually select a color and just paint areas, okay? I just made a path. I didn't even say these are two separate shapes, right? Is that cool? This is the best part, okay? I now want to go in and I'm like, oh, well, I want to move the path over here. So if I come in here and I actually double click to get in there, I could select like the path and I'm going to rotate it, for instance, and let go. Look what happens. I'm going to copy it and rotate it. I can then actually go to the live paint bucket tool and just keep adding stuff. I mean, it's pretty insane, you guys. You can just keep doing stuff. This is live paint. And honestly, if you're going to do different kinds of artwork, icons, all kinds of stuff, this is awesome to use because it's going to allow you to work a lot faster without having to adjust 50 little shapes or whatever you're doing, okay? So what we're going to do is we're not going to get crazy. We're not going to use the triangle at the bottom. That takes like 100 steps. It is in the handout, though. I show you how to make the one at the bottom, the blue one. We're going to create the square up top, okay? Just to make it so we can kind of get the idea here. So what I want you to do is come to these two shapes right here. I've kind of got the starting point, the white, what's that called? Square, and the black square. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to paint these. Now with live paint, the whole idea is you want to get the shapes out there you want to use to start with. You can always add stuff later like you just saw with the circle, but it's better to get it going first. So what we're going to do is to make it so we've got these 4 areas around the actual square on the white. We're just going to draw a series of lines extending from the middle to the corner, okay? So come over to your line segment tool, over there in your tools panel. It might be buried under the tools over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the smart guides. So come to the top, let me zoom in so you can see this. Come to the top of the black shape here, press and drag, right? And just come to the corner. And you should see with smart guides, it's just going to keep it all straight and everything. And when you guys see intersect, which means it's hitting it, just let go. Cool? Now, I want to take that line and I want to like make 3 more copies and rotate it around. I'm not drawing all those, okay? So we're going to work a little faster here. If you have to do something where you're repeating elements or doing stuff like that, we're going to use the same shortcut we did with reflect. But in this case, we're going to use the rotate tool. So what I want you to do is go to the rotate tool with that line still selected, okay? And if you come out here, you're going to see that if you put your cursor, put the pointer right in the middle of that black rectangle, that black square. Does everybody see the word center show up? Got to kind of feel for it, move it around a little bit. We're going to use the same shortcut we did with reflect. We're going to make it so it rotates around that point, and we're going to copy it in one step. So press the Option key. It's Alt on Windows, but press the Option key. When you see the word center hanging out in the middle there, just click with your mouse with the key held down. Okay? How many of you love math? All right. I freaking hate figuring out angles. The star below this one, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm doing the math on this. We let Illustrator do the math, okay? So the whole thing round is 360, right? So why don't you do this for me? Come into the angle and just type in 360. How many sections are we going to create? How many times do we want to rotate this thing around? We need a total of what? We need a total of 4. So we're going to have Illustrator divide it by 4. So put a /4. Turn on and off preview. Toggle it on, toggle it off. And click copy. There we go. You'll never have to do math in Illustrator again, okay? Did everybody get it? Go. Okay. We're going to work faster. I don't want to do that again. If you guys want to practice it, go for it. You can. But we're going to now make it so it just transforms again. How many of you use transform again? Okay, this is an amazing feature. If you come up to Object, Transform, the shortcut for that is Command-D. Use transform again. Go ahead and do it. You're going to do it twice. Now the reason why I showed you guys how to do this with the tool, with clicking and all that, is because we got the actual rotation and the copy in one step. So if we use transform again, it's going to do both of those things. That's why I like to use that method. Did that work for you? Okay. Do it one more time so you get the fourth one. Object transform, transform again, or hit the actual, Okay. So we got ourselves this stuff. Now what we're going to do is we're going to paint each area. So to do that, we got to select all the shapes, all the things we just created. So go to the selection tool, black arrow on the tools panel, and just drag across it all. All right. Now we're going to paint it. So the idea here is that we're going to use the live paint bucket tool, and we're going to say, let's start. We have to turn this thing into a live paint object, and that just means start painting it, and it'll automatically do it. So come over in your tools panel to the live paint bucket tool. You should see it hanging out. We dragged it out there by the pin. I think you guys had the puppet warp rather. Come on out. Does everybody see the 3 little color swatches above it? Yep, okay, good. No, that's fine. Those little swatches are the swatches in the swatches panel. Go over to the go over to fill color over here in the properties panel and click on the fill color. And all you're doing, you guys, is you're looking at a representation of 3 of those swatches out of the whole list. If you see a gradient, that's cool. It just means the gradient's selected. Pick a color, any color, for fill. Every time I do this, it still freaks me out. It will not fill it with that color. You're just saying, load the live paint bucket tool with that color so we can go paint with it. Press escape to hide the swatches, and come on out, and come into one of the blank areas and just click. Now, if we want to use a different swatch, how many of you use color groups in Illustrator to create a group of colors? If you guys have a group set up and you choose one of those in fill, you'll actually see the colors around it in the 3 swatches above the pointer right now. If you use the arrow keys right and left, you can cycle through the colors. You can even go up and down if you want. Arrow up, arrow down. But that's going to start to give us the colors that we see in the swatches panel. So if you find a color you like, just click to paint. You guys, if you don't like, I know a lot of people like myself, sometimes I don't like that. I can't see the colors, you know, they're so close. You can always keep going to fill in the properties panel, choosing another color, and then click to paint. Go to fill, choose another color, click to paint. You can keep doing that too. Any way you want works. Is that working? Cool. So we can create some cool artwork this way without having to define all these shapes by using Shape Builder and all that kind of stuff. So now the great thing about this, like I showed you a little bit ago, was if I have this and I'm like, okay, that's great, but what I want to do now is I want to kind of move things around a little bit. We can take everything in here if we want and start to readjust or move it. So do this for me. Come to the direct selection tool, the white arrow. Click on one of the lines that you drew. And what I want to do is I'm just going to grab the end of one of those lines. I'm going to click on one of the anchor points and just drag it. So I'm going to say, let's go down here, like to this corner, and then let go. And you're going to see what happens. Try doing that for each of your lines. Click on the line, drag the anchor point, and you're going to see that this is why we use live paint right here. Because all it's going to do is it's going to look at those areas and just start to fill them in. Now, I will let you know that if you draw like one of these lines and it's not close enough to the edge of the square, for instance, and there's like a gap around it, it's going to be like the dam broke. All the while, the color's just going to kind of flood around it. It won't work. So these lines have to be close enough to the edges, okay? All right. Cool, there it is. That's live paint, you guys. A lot of things we can do with this, a lot of ways to work. There are a lot of other methods you can use too. If you want, you can actually paint the strokes on these, but you actually have to turn it on in the tool. It's a preference in the tool that you can go to double-click the tool and set it, okay? I just wanted to mention that's there, but all right. What do you think? Maybe useful, possibly? Yeah, it's pretty killer. Okay, we're going to jump into something else here. We're going to jump into working with gradients, and I want to show you guys a brand new way to work with gradients called Freeform gradients. How many of you saw that at the keynote when they showed it? What did you think of that? It's awesome. It's so easy to use. You guys, let's just do it. Shut up. All right. So why don't you come to File, Open. Let's open up another file. And you should see 05 gradients. Let's open up that bad boy. Now, I've got a cake in here that has nothing to do with what we're doing. I just thought it looked kind of cool, so do whatever you want with that. No, that's actually, you guys, that's actually part of the classroom in a book for Illustrator that I write. This is one of the lesson files. What we're going to do is we're actually going to make the kiwi, okay? Now, how many of you have ever used, how many of you have ever used gradients before? Right, okay. How many of you guys have ever used gradient mesh in Illustrator? Okay, successfully? That's a different question. How many of you that have used gradient mesh, you start moving the points and suddenly they look like bent coat hangers and the weird stuff starts happening, like it's all funky? Anyway, all right. We're going to make this a lot easier, you guys. We're going to use a freeform gradient. It's so much easier to work with. The idea here is that we now have three kinds of gradients. We've got a linear, we've got a radial, and we've got a freeform, which is whatever you want it to do. To apply it, we're just going to do what we normally would. We're going to apply like a default gradient and kind of start from there. Okay? Fastest way to apply the last gradient you've used, which in most cases is going to be black-white because we haven't done it, press the period key. Okay? Now hang on, hang on. We have to do what first before we apply a color? We have to determine if we want to apply it to the fill or stroke, right? Because we can apply it to stroke. So make sure you look in your tools panel. Make sure that fill is up front. If it's not, what letter are we going to press? X. Then press the period to apply a default linear gradient to the fill. Okay, this is just to kind of get us running here. Now, did everybody see the marketing show up? Okay, you got this. So just go ahead and click OK in that thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to just throw it out there. So if you look, you're going to see in the gradient panel that opened, you've now got three boxes toward the top. And also in the properties panel. You actually have the linear, the radial, and you've also got the freeform. So to create a freeform gradient, this is one way to do it. Click on freeform gradient to apply it. And what's going to happen is it's going to kind of look at the shape, and it's going to determine where it should put a bunch of colors. Every time, now, do you guys see all the little circles in yours? Are yours a little smaller maybe than mine? That's because when I went to the preferences when we first started, I cranked up the anchor display. So it's going to put a bunch of these little color stops out here. These are kind of like a gradient. It's just colors everywhere, and what happens is they all kind of blend and mesh together. Why don't you click on one of those circles, and what you can do is just drag it around. A little drag. This is the coolest thing ever, you guys. I seriously wish we could like animate this and record it. It's so cool. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to create the kiwi. And what I want to do is instead of just placing a whole bunch of colors out here and hoping that it works, we are actually going to be able to create a gradient along a path. That way we have consistent rings in the kiwi. Okay? Because if we just stick a bunch of colors out here, these circles, it's going to kind of blend in a circular pattern like this, and it's going to look a little weird. So we're going to do something a little different. What I want you to do is we're going to delete a bunch of these. So if you click on one of those circles, the color stops, hit delete, press delete. I want to keep just two. So go ahead and click and delete and just keep two of those in there. And what we'll do, like I said, is we're going to go out and we're going to start to paint with these. If we want to change the color of one of these, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can always just click on one of those circles and then go over to the fill. You can also, once you do this, double click on one of those circles, those points. You should see the color panel, and you should also see the swatches panel. So click on the swatches there. And something that's a little bit newer in gradients and color, we also have the color picker we can work with to sample color from stuff, which is cool. I've made 4 different kiwi colors in the swatches. So if you want to select like the darker green, you can do that. Hopefully everybody sees that. And then for us to make a path, so it's nice and smooth around the outside, we have to tell it, let's make a path. So what you're going to do is if you look in the gradient panel, and you can do this also in the properties panel as well, you're going to see lines. Go ahead and select lines. And that just means that as we start adding these points, it's going to make a path, kind of like you would draw with the curvature or pen tool or something like that. So do this for me. Come up to the one you just colored, you just changed the color of, and click on it. Come above, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle. Okay, so we need how many points to do that? 4. So come up, mine's on the side, come up to the top. You're going to see a line extending. Go ahead and click. Move your pointer away after your release, and you should see it's going to act like the curvature tool. How many of you use the curvature tool? Okay. So I'm going to keep clicking here. I'm going to go all the way around. Come back to the first point you had, and if you move your pointer over it, you're going to see it's going to say, okay, let's close. If you click back on it, it'll close the path. Did that work? Was that easy? Yeah, that was pretty easy. If we had to do that before, it would take a little bit, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to make another ring that's a little bit lighter green. So we're going to start with a point. So what I want you to do is just come in a little closer to the center and just click somewhere, like right there maybe. Now, the tip I've got for you here is that if you're going to do this, it's easier to change the color before you start making a bunch of points. So go ahead and double click on that little point. I'm going to pick the lighter kiwi color or something like that if you want. And then make a circle. Just go around. And what's cool about this is those points, if you start dragging one of them around, you'll see that the closer you get to one of the other paths, it's going to have a really cool effect. It's actually going to make it so that the distinction or the change from one color to the next is pretty abrupt. So you can get some really cool effects. You can even get like a really harsh line if you want to, kind of have some different styling there. So, all right, does everybody still have that other lonely point kind of sitting somewhere in there? Okay. I want you to change the color of that point. So go ahead and double click on it. And I got a really light color of yellow in there. If you want to choose that, it's part of the Kiwi group. And what we're going to do is this. We're just going to go out and we're going to add some more of these. So I just want to now add just a series of colors in there. Okay? We don't want to draw a path. So if you want to just add some color that you can move around and do things to, instead of having lines selected, make sure you select points in the Gradients panel or over in the Properties panel. You can then, if you want, if you select points, you can just, as you click, you're just going to start adding different colors. And you want to make sure you've got the right color applied if you do that. And what I love about this, let me zoom in, you guys, so you can see this. What I love about this is that if you notice when you click on one of these little points, do you see the dashed circle around it? That's kind of like how far it extends or how far it blends. So if you want to, you can blend this a little bit further or even closer by dragging the little black circle, the little widget. So you can say, let's extend it or bring it in. So I've got a little bit of wiggle room here. So what I can do is kind of start to work with this a little bit. If you guys want to add a few others and try different colors and different things like that, you can do that. And just try some different things, kind of move them around a little bit. See if we get a little more natural feel to this. There's some really cool things we can do with this. But as you drag them around, they're just going to keep kind of blending and moving and working. You will notice that with the paths you draw, we can't really drag them so they overlap another path, you know what I mean? If you drag a circle, it's going to hit one of the paths and say that's it. It's going to create a really finite edge, like kind of an abrupt change between colors. But that's a cool way to be able to do things. If you want, you can actually drag the individual circles, these individual points, anywhere you want. And it creates some really cool effects and some cool things you can do. All right, is that working, you guys? Cool. So we're getting close to our kiwi, all right? This is just, you're just going to mess around. You are going to lose time on this, okay? So just dive into it, try things. If you really think about it, there's a billion ways you could use this to create more realistic art, add shadowing, quote unquote, do things like that. So a lot of really cool things. Okay, that is the new way to work with gradients called the Freeform gradient. And you can see in the one up here, I just basically added a whole nother kind of path in between here and a path here, and I just did a whole bunch of different stuff to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. And these little like seeds in here, I actually just drew. So those are there. All right, does anybody have any questions on Freeform gradients? Yeah. Yeah, we can actually select multiple if we want to, and usually instead of double clicking on it, you're going to go over to the fill in the properties panel to be able to change it there. Yeah. All righty. You ready to keep moving? Is that cool? Is that okay? All right. How many of you have ever used recolor artwork, the recolor artwork feature? Okay. If you guys haven't used this, prepare to have your mind blown. Anybody ever had a logo or an icon or artwork and somebody comes and says, you know what, instead of the colors you chose, I want to go with the one color with just tints, or I want to go to spot color or CMYK, or let's change it, let's make it a little darker, let's make it a little lighter, that kind of thing. Typically, if we would use a bunch of swatches, we can get that done. We can work smart. But we can also use what's called recolor artwork. It's a way for us to quickly get in, grab artwork, and recolor the whole thing in one step. So let's do this. We're going to open up another file. So let's go to File, Open. And you should see 07 Recolor Artwork. Let's open that one up. Now, we've just got a bunch of stuff in here, and somebody comes to us and says, the poster, looking good so far, like it. I just want to take everything and make it a little darker, okay? I want to make it a little lighter, or I want to change the blue to green and the green to blue. I want to do stuff like that. I mean, typically we'd be going to like every color and every swatch and doing that kind of thing, but we can use recolor artwork to do this. The idea here is that we select what we want to recolor and we use the actual effect. So let's do this. Go ahead and select everything out here on this one artboard. And what's a fast way to select all the stuff on a single artboard? If you guys come up under Select, you're going to see All on Active Artboard. That's a great command, a great shortcut to learn. Okay, with all that stuff selected, we're going to now recolor it. So to do that, come to the right. You should see the Recolor button over there in the Properties panel. Click on that. Now, just hang on, just look up here. This dialogue is a little too much, okay? I'm going to say right now that if you're waiting in here, there's no undo, okay? You're going to get 3 steps in, and you're going to be like, oh crap, what do? I want to go back. No, you can't. The one thing you can do is you can kind of reset the colors to start again. You'll notice, everybody see the eyedropper up here in the upper right? That is always going to tell Illustrator to go grab the colors, the original colors again, and bring them back in here so I can start messing with it, okay? All right, with that said, if you look in here, what it just did was it looked at my artwork and it said, let's grab every color out there and stick it in here. If you look, there's 2 options, 2 ways to work in here. We have Edit and Assign. Why don't you click Edit? Every color is represented on the color wheel now. The idea behind this is, and it can get a little tricky, you guys. This is a pretty rough process here because we've got a lot of color going on. If you were to come out here and you were to grab one of these colors, like a light color or a dark color or something like that, maybe one of the blues, and you were to start dragging it around and editing it, look what's going to happen. Each one of these colors represents the color out there in the actual poster, okay? So you can kind of go out and edit this stuff. Now, if you want, we have all kinds of color options in here. We have like a brightness slider to adjust the brightness overall, go darker, however you want to do it. If you want to, you can take all of the colors in this thing, in this artwork, and adjust them together. Do this for me. There's actually a little chain link icon right here which says Link Harmony Colors. If you click on that, it should be a link now. If you come out and grab one of these colors and start moving it, notice what it's going to do. All of these are going to change. It's actually going to change the hue. It's not going to change the saturation if you drag in and out, but just the hue along the wheel here, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. You guys, if you just have like one of the flowers you're doing, there's going to be like 3 colors. It's going to be easier to figure out what color goes to what, etc. But you can start doing it and working with it. You can actually click on each one of those little color circles which represents a color, and you can go down here to HSB or CMYK or however you guys want to do it. And there's actually a little menu right here, this 3-line arrow thing, where you can change how you view the colors. So you can edit each color independently if you really want to go that far, okay? There's a lot of options. To be honest, what I tend to do with this kind of thing is if I need to make sure that maybe it's like we're printing it or something like that, and I only need 2 colors, or I want to make sure that it's like, I'll show you, shut up. Tell you what, come to the Assign option up here. So it's just to the right of Edit. What it's doing is it's saying every bar, every color bar on the left, which actually says current colors, there are 26 colors in this thing, and what it did was it put them all listed in there. Then there's a little column over to the right which says New. It's just telling me what each color is changing to. You're going to see a little arrow pointing from one color to the next. It's saying this color is becoming this color. If you want to, you can do things like, I want all of this to be one color, but just a bunch of tints of the color. Come up to Colors up here where it says Auto, and choose one. And take a look. You just changed it to a single color with tints. This is awesome because you guys could actually go in there and say, maybe you need to print this as a spot color or PMS or something like that. If you look, all the colors now are on one bar, just kind of ganged up in there in the current colors right here. And to the right of it, you're going to see, like, I don't know what color you guys see, but I see like a reddish brown. If you double click that box in the new column, the color, you can go out and use Color Picker to change the color. You can actually go to color swatches over here, and you can choose from different color swatches you've created. Okay, so these are your swatches, obviously. If you guys want to, you can also down here, this dialog is pretty big, there's a lot going on, but down here where it says none right now, I can actually choose color books, all kinds of stuff, PMS, whatever I want. I can switch it to whatever color mode, color model I want to use at this point. Does this make sense, you guys? You think it could be useful? This is a crazy example. It really is. We've got a billion colors we're trying to change. I will tell you this, you guys. What we're doing is we're sort of foregoing the whole swatch thing. Because if you guys take the time to make the swatches and things like that, what's going to happen is it's not going to change the original colors. The swatch is saved in the swatches panel. The best method to use for this, in my opinion, is if you want to preserve the swatches, if you want to make sure that the color you change here is going to affect the swatch in the document, you guys want to take the swatches you made in the swatches panel and save them into a group first. Because it's going to allow you to edit the group or update the group when you click OK here. It's going to save those color swatches and affect them. Does that make sense? Okay. That's the best workflow. If you really want to make sure the swatches change, do that. Save them as a group, then it'll affect them. Okay? Otherwise, we're kind of just going in and saying, let's change the color. And we got it. I use this a fair amount just because it's a nice, easy way to do things like this. Why don't you click OK? And I just want to point out one other cool thing I love about doing color in here. If you come up under the Edit menu, you're going to see Edit Colors. Has anybody ever needed to switch from RGB to CMYK? Like maybe they saved it in the wrong whatever. Well, this is where you can do that. So we can actually switch color models, and it's going to change every color in the document for us, which is awesome. So if you have Pantone and a mix of RGB and all that kind of stuff, just select all the artwork and say, force it to CMYK. It will update or change the artwork. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got time for just maybe one or two more things we're going to get to here. So we're going to start taking a look at the Appearance panel. How many of you use the Appearance panel in Illustrator? It's one of those things that it is a must to use. If you're going to do a lot of artwork and a lot of different things, we're going to use it because it's kind of like a history sort of. So let's open up another file. So come on up to File, and let's go to Open. And you're going to see, what's it called here? 06 text. It's in the extras folder. Go ahead and open that up. All right. What I want to do is I want to go out and just talk to you about the Appearance panel and how it's just some amazing things we can do in here and tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. Because if we are creating artwork, there's a lot of times we want to make it, the way we want it to look, but we want to do it as quickly as we can and also be able to go back and make edits and changes later on really easily. So let's go ahead and let's do this. Why don't you guys select these two text objects right up here. Deadlines keep coming. This one right here. Get rid of this crap. Get out of here. So just those two. It's just text, you guys. So select those two with the black arrow, the selection tool. How can I strip all the formatting off of these objects, off of this text? How can I get it back to like white and black? Have you guys ever had to do something like that? Somebody else's artwork, you got to kind of do different things to it, etc. There's a couple ways to do it. Go ahead and press the letter D. Goes to default, right? But that's looking a little odd, right? So we got white and black, which is reversed. Another way we can do this, come over to the right and you're going to see the Appearance section in the Properties panel. Click on, do you see, everybody see the ellipsis over there? Anytime you see these More Options, that's usually going to open another panel. So click on that little More Options thing in the Appearance section, and it should open the Appearance panel. At the very bottom of the appearance panel, you're going to see like a slash, which to me means don't click me, but it's saying clear appearance. So if you guys click on that clear appearance when you have text or object selected, it's going to put it back where it was. Actual black fill, no stroke, etc. I actually use that a fair amount. It's just a quick way to just strip all the formatting off of something and let me get back to where I was. When I'm experimenting, sometimes I need to just do that, okay? So that clear appearance is pretty cool for text for any object. Now, the appearance panel itself, if you notice here, it's going to say what you have selected, and it's going to tell you what you did to that stuff. Have you guys ever opened somebody else's stuff and you're like, how did they get this or do that? Like, you're trying to select something and you're like, what the hell did they do here? Come down here and click on the Keep Common Text down there, the one that's got the stuff on it still, and look in the appearance panel. The appearance panel is kind of like a history of the object, like what you've done to it, sort of. So you can see everything. You can see effects, you can see strokes, fills, opacity changes, transparency, blend modes, all that kind of stuff. So we can kind of get an idea. And what I love about this thing too is it's like a layered panel. So you've got all these little eyeballs, and if you guys start clicking on those little eyeballs, you can start turning off different effects and different things to kind of strip it back and see what they did to this thing and how they got that effect or how they got the look, okay? With appearance, with this kind of stuff, it could be text, it could be anything you're working on. Has anybody ever wanted to put like a couple strokes on something, make it look like it's got like that? Or maybe take like a pattern and stick it over a color and have them blend together and all that kind of thing? That's what we use the appearance panel for. That's one of the things. So that's what we're going to do to the text up there. Go ahead and with the black arrow, selection tool, go ahead and select those two text objects up there. Now, if we have normal artwork, like a shape, a path, or whatever, if you just select it, you can start jumping in the appearance and doing different things. With text, if you want to do things like add multiple strokes or fills overlaying on top of each other, you have to select the text object, not the text inside. If I go and put my cursor, just watch, if I put my cursor in this text right here or select it, if I look at the appearance panel, at the bottom of the panel, there are two buttons we use all the time, Add New Stroke and Add New Fill. I can't touch them because I had text selected. As soon as I select the box that it's in, I can now start adding all that stuff, okay? So I just wanted to point that out. If you try this back at work or whatever, and you're like, it's not showing up, it's because of that. So with these selected, come over here to Appearance, you're going to see that it's got the type selected. What we're going to do is we're going to start putting some color on this. So come to the bottom of the Appearance panel, and you'll see we can do a new stroke, a new fill, or effects. So first of all, click on Add New Fill. And it automatically puts a stroke in there. Everything that's an appearance on this object is going to be listed as a row in the Appearance panel. And you'll notice that the fill and the stroke out there now, there's a little arrow to the left. You can toggle it closed and keep it a little bit neater. The reason why there's stuff underneath it is because it's the individual opacity or blend mode for that thing, that appearance. Excuse me. So with the fill selected, click on the fill color box. You'll see it right there. And let's just pick some kind of pattern. I got a whole bunch in here I just threw in here. You can just try one. Just pick one. That looks amazing. Whatever. Okay. Now some of the patterns actually, you can see through parts of them, and you'll still see the black text below. What I want to do is I want to actually have a pattern that's got a little bit of transparency. I can see I picked this one. I can still see the black, okay? We're going to blend it into a color we add. So we're going to put another color on the text. So to add a new fill to this, come down to the bottom of the panel and click Add New Fill. We can layer and stack this stuff on top of each other as much as we want. If I add a new fill, it's just going to simply duplicate the fill we just had. Now, does everybody have two fills, one stacked on top of the other? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom fill and we're going to make it a solid color. Okay? So with that bottom fill selected, that appearance row, click on the color and just choose some solid color, something, whatever you want. Can you see the color coming through the pattern? Sometimes you can't, depending on the pattern, but what we're going to do now is we're going to take that pattern that's on top of the color and we're actually going to blend the pattern into the color using a blend mode. click on the top fill, and this is where we're going to have to open up the options for it. So you can see the little arrow to the left. Click on that arrow to open up the opacity. Click on opacity, and you can go to town. You can try different blend modes. You can do all kinds of stuff if you want. You can change the opacity, all kinds of things. The more fills we stack, the more blends and different looks and textures and different things we can create in here to make it really pretty cool. And to add even more, we can start adding effects. You can do textures, rasterization, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. I'll show you one of my favorite effects with this kind of artwork. If we want, maybe we want to put a couple strokes, okay, around the outside, that kind of thing. Let's do that. Are you guys good? Is that okay? We good to go? Okay. Does everybody still have that stroke row in there? It's got nothing? Click on the color for the stroke row, the appearance, and let's just pick a color. I'll just do something, I'll do black, whatever. And then just change the size of it, make it a little bigger maybe. What we're going to do is we're going to just stack a couple strokes on top of each other, and we're going to kind of move them so you can do some really cool stuff. So I want to add a brand new stroke. Come to the bottom of the panel, click Add New Stroke. You now got the same stroke, one on top of the other. Come to the top one and change the color and make it maybe a little smaller or something. Let's try something. Okay. What's going to happen is it's going to just take one stroke and it's going to cover part of the other stroke. These are layered on top of each other. Now, what's maddening is you see the strokes and you're like, well, I have a black stroke and then like this yellow stroke. I want the black stroke that's below to kind of come out a little bit so I can see more of it. Problem is, if I just make the stroke weight bigger, it's going to grow around the whole path. It's going to go in and out. So what I want to do is I want to take this stroke and just pull the whole thing out to make it look like it's kind of going around the text. One of the great effects that we can use in here is we can use something called offset path. Go ahead and select your bottom stroke, the bigger one. So I've got the bottom one here. And this is kind of key, you guys. When you're working the appearance panel, you want to make sure that what you're about to do, you're affecting the thing you want to affect. So you got to select it. So that stroke row, if you select it, come down to the bottom and you'll see the effects. If you click on the effects button, got all our stuff, go to path and you'll see offset path. Go ahead and choose that one. And go ahead and turn on preview in the dialog and take a look. So it's going to pull it way out, okay? Now here's a tip for you. In just about every Adobe application, if you want to change do you guys notice that there are no arrows to change the value for offset? Like click up, click down, that kind of thing? It drives me crazy. If you click on the word offset, it selects the field, like what's in it. And then you can just use your up arrow and your down arrow on your keyboard to change the number of the value. If you want to go faster, press the Shift key and click a down arrow or an up arrow, and it'll go by 10. So you can have a jump. So what I can do is I can kind of pull it out a little bit to make it look like I want. Now the great thing about this too, with offset path, is we can actually do things like round the corners. If you notice there's a join, you can do things like, say, round. So it'll round the edges a little bit if you want. Bevel it. There's a couple of things in here we can do. Yeah, we would actually make the stroke weight bigger, honestly, and I didn't make it big enough to begin with, so I'll show you how we can change that. All right, so if you got the effect applied, go ahead and click OK. If you look in the appearance panel now, you'll notice that the offset path effect is applied just to that stroke. You guys, if we wanted to apply an effect to the whole object, you would actually come into the appearance panel, click where there's a blank area. Watch, I would click where there's a blank area to deselect everything. And if I apply an effect right now, I'm like, you know what? Pucker and bloat's like my favorite. So I'm going to go in here and just pucker it. I don't know. Give it a little rock look. There we go. It's going to put the effect on top and apply to everything out here. Does that make sense? If you wanted to apply to one thing, you can do that just by selecting it, like that stroke. If you want to edit it, if you guys see the offset path effect, just click on the words offset path and you can go back in and start to work it a little bit. But at this point, once you start adding this content, you can actually start to change by just making things bigger, smaller, etc. There's a lot of things we can do here, you guys. Is that cool? Does that make sense? I know it's not beautiful. Don't look up here, okay? I know. But the idea, okay? These are all things. These are things that we can use to kind of work a little bit faster. All right, you guys, we're just about done here, but I want to do just one quick thing. I want to show you a brand new feature that is in Illustrator that can save you just a buttload of time. Did I actually just say that? Wow. A boatload of time. Okay. Let's open one last file. So come to File. Go ahead and choose Open. And let's open, let me make sure, you guys. Yeah, go ahead and open up Icons. I think it's like 08 Icons or something like that. Yeah. It's just some artwork. It's a web design. It's got a couple pages that we're designing, etc. And if you guys see the Activate Fonts thing, go ahead and click Activate Fonts just to get them in there. You don't really need them. How many of you have ever used symbols before in Illustrator? What's a symbol? What's the idea? Why do we use them? What's that? Consistency, right? It's a way for us to take something that we're going to use a lot of, like we're going to have 6 buttons, and I want them all to look the same or at least similar. We can take one, save it as a symbol, it saves it in the document, and you can just take out copies, which are called instances. And if you edit the original symbol, all of those copies will update as well, okay, which is pretty cool. It's a great way to work. But we don't always use symbols. Some of us are lazy, you know, some of us want to be able to work faster, and we've got a brand new feature here we can use to kind of counteract that. For instance, if you guys see, we've got a bunch of these icons right here which have circles underneath them. What I want you to do is come to the one with the kind of, it looks like a fake coffee cup, it's almost created, the brown circle. Click on the brown circle with the selection tool. If you have artwork across artboards or in a single artboard and you want to be able to select similar content, we can do that using what's called Global Edit. Looking in the Appearance panel on the right, you're going to see we now have this feature, this thing called Start Global Edit. Go ahead and click on that. And what it's going to do is it's going to take a look at your artboards out here and say, if we find something that's a similar shape or a similar object, we're going to select it for you. Do you guys have it? Did it select other stuff, other circles? Okay. Now, that's great because we don't have to go out and select it. It's going to do it for us. To me, it's kind of like anybody ever used the select similar commands in here? It's sort of like that, but this is actually much more powerful. It's going to give us what we want. But if we're looking at this and I'm like, you know what, let's actually do this, you guys. Come and click on, do this. Click away to stop it. Just click anywhere else and it will stop the whole global edit thing, the selection. Click on the green circle behind this jacket. That's a group. And let's make it a little bigger, okay? Just use your shift key and make this icon a little bit bigger, like that. Click back on the brown circle again, and we're going to start Global Edit again. So come over here and click on Start Global Edit. Okay? Now, if we want to select similar objects, we actually have some things we can do here. If you come to that Stop Global Edit button now, come to the right of it, you're going to see an arrow. Click on the arrow, and we can actually come in and say Sort by Appearance and or Size and Artboard. Do you guys have anything selected? Is Appearance or Size selected, either one of those? Size is selected, right? Go ahead and turn off Size and take a look at your selection out there. Did it grab the other circle now? Yeah. This is live, you guys. This is not us going to a menu command and trying to go through the process. It's all live. So if we're like, you know what, I don't want to do the big circles. I just want to do the little circles. We can sort by size. And then you can also sort by appearance. I'm like, you know what, I only want to do like the brown circles. This is the worst example in the world because there's only one. So go ahead and turn on appearance, and you'll see it's going to filter it further and say, okay, you're just going to do the one brown circle. Appearance or strokes, fills, that kind of thing, okay? Go ahead and turn off appearance because we want the rest of those smaller circles. And if you look in here, you're going to see we can actually tell it to select specific artboards, like different sizes. You can say just this artboard. There's certain things we can do there. This is not meant to like, do a symbol kind of thing. It's meant to make selections easier for us, so we can make global edits. So at this point, I've got those 4 circles selected, and I realize they all need to be the same color. So all you got to do now is come up to Fill in the Appearance panel, in the Properties panel, and pick a new fill. Okay? What did it do? It just changed one, right? Okay. So if you guys actually click away from the panel, somewhere else, it's going to come up and say, do you want to do this for the rest of your selections? I'll say sure. And there we go. Did it work? Does that make sense? You guys, this seriously, if you have multiple objects, if you have things across artworks, I do icons all the time, all that kind of stuff. I still want to use a symbol workflow when it makes sense. I still want to use certain things, but this is just so much easier with your artwork. It really can help to make global edits. So, alrighty, that is it. We are a little past time here, but I seriously want to thank you guys for coming. There is a session review survey you guys can fill out if you want to. Also, they wanted me to mention that if you're going to, is anybody going to Max Bash tonight? Yeah, of course. They said something about backpacks. We don't want to bring big backpacks, stuff like that. If you can have a small purse, you can bring it in, but they don't want backpacks, okay? So, other than that, have a good Max. Thanks for coming.